and I went to the Humane Society of the United States in Washington, and they came down, inspected it, and yes, I got the grant I needed to expand it. When I came up here, I thought I was retiring, and I wasn't going to have any problems. And all of a sudden, all of this community plan started in, and I was in the middle of Rancho, and I thought, who can I call that can give me answers? And I went through my computer, and this name kept coming up, Tim McSorley. So I did that. I called him. And everything that I called and asked him about, he answered me. If I asked him to send me something, he did. Not one time did he ever refuse. Not one time did I see him being anything but a gentleman at every single meeting. So I think that if people need to know something that CCOG knows, I think they should call Tim McSorley, because I'm sure he'll give it to you, instead of everybody arguing over everything that's going on. I have a lot of problem with saying anything about Tim McSorley, because apparently I wasn't trustworthy because I knew him. That hurt me really bad. But I have known Tim McSorley for a while now, and I have never known him to refuse anybody. So maybe people need to think about that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sally Graham from Mountain Ranch, District 2. In summary, I do not understand how eliminating two public members from the COG and limiting that one person to one term solves the problem of roles and responsibilities. All it does is eliminate and overrule public input. It seems like a government power grab of decisions and funds at a time when we, the public, are demanding less government control and less government spending and more public oversight. I encourage the board to vote no on the COG's proposal before you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. Madam Chair, members of the board. First of all, I want to say that I'm impressed, and I want to commend the chair for going through 16 pages of the JPA and 39 pages of the operations manual. That takes a lot of time, a lot of information in there. And it's really unfortunate, and I'm shocked to hear that there was a meeting held with Supervisor Tryon and the two members of the City Council without you being notified, since you are the other board representative on the COG. I don't understand how that could possibly happen. And one of the other things I wanted to mention was Mr. Passage here felt that there was possibility of a personal agenda going on here. And I think those members of the Board of Supervisors who sit on the COG know that I'm of the same opinion, that there is something personal going on here. And I don't see any problem with the way the JPA is written today. I'm not talking about the draft now. I'm talking about the existing one that's in effect right now. I don't see any problem that the COG has carried out a number of projects. Just to list a few: the pedestrian master plan, the San Andreas mobility plan, the Angels Camp bypass. They were the primary responsible party for getting the funding for that Angels Angels Camp bypass, $30 million plus or minus. They were also they also put out the Arnold mobility plan, the Murphy circulation study, and the bikeway plan update. They've done a lot of good things here with the current JPA. And I feel, and I think, as I said before, the members of the board who sit on the COG know my feelings with respect to the Public Works Department and Mr. Garcia. As I've said so often to the COG, last November of 2009, Mr. Garcia stood before the COG and said that he felt that 95% of the work program of the COG should be administered by the county. And when he says county, he means Mr. Garcia. And it really threw me for a loop that he wanted to take on more responsibilities when he already has, I would think, a full plate as Public Works Director. And just to give those of you who aren't familiar with my background, I was the Public Works Director in Amador County for 13 years. I was also the Executive Director of the Local Transportation Commission in Amador County for 13 years. So I have some familiarity with how transportation planning and programming needs to take place. With respect to the public being members of the COG, I agree with the previous speakers. If anything, you should not diminish the number of members, public members, you should increase it. I'm a registered civil engineer, and when I got my license 40 years ago, the registration board, State of California Board of Registration for Engineers and Surveyors, was made up entirely of professional engineers and land surveyors. Then they decided, well, we need to have some public members, and now it's gone the other way. I think it's good to have public members. I think public members on any group ask questions that are pertinent because they are not familiar necessarily with the process. So they ask some pretty basic questions sometimes that cause others to do some thinking, and maybe just because we've done it for 20 years like this doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. That doesn't mean it's this other idea that I have isn't a better idea. Also, I was taken aback about a month ago at the workshop held by this board, the original one, on July 20th, where Mr. Garcia accused the COG of not making use of funds it had, $400,000 in reserve. Now, I'm an advocate for the reserve, and there's a reason for that, is that occasionally federal government, and there's talk right now of a $50 billion infrastructure bill that may be coming, who knows, federal government occasionally will make funds available to local agencies. Many times there's a match required. Right now, in most federal funds, you've got to have 11.5% match. Well, if you don't have the money available to you, then you can't take advantage and leverage your money, which is I've always advocated before the COG. You need to have a little savings account here that, you know, when the state or the federal government sticks out their hand with a bag full of money in it, then and asks you for 10% match or whatever the match might be, you want to be able to take advantage of that leveraging of funds. And this is the reason for the reserve. And if you read that operations manual, it says that the money will be distributed, any leftover monies, LTF monies will be distributed to the city and the county. I don't think that's the way it should be, and that's also true of my feelings with the RSTP money. That's the exchange dollars that come through from the state. Well, they're federal dollars, but they're distributed by Caltrans. I think there ought to be a reserve amount of money in there. At any rate, in the 20th of July, Mr. Garcia took a shot at the COG because they had $400,000 of reserve funds. He said the money should be put out on the street. And I commented to you, and I'll repeat it, that Mr. Garcia carried over $3.1 million of money in the Public Works budget in 08-09, and he has $7.4 million of RIM money sitting in the bank. Those monies need to be spent. You have 5 years to spend those monies without the board taking specific action to give a reason, a rationale why you haven't spent those monies. Because they're taken in as contributions from developers because of impacts to traffic. Those improvements need to be made. If somebody gets hurt because somebody's sitting on money that should make those left turn improvements, for example, then the county could be liable for that.
Okay, you have about 30 seconds.
Oh, crud. Well, Supervisor Tryon has said in the past at COG meetings that you can't serve two masters. And I don't want to say too much because he's always accusing me of taking words out of, or misrepresenting what he says. But he said something to the effect you can't serve two masters. The COG has never fought with the county over who's going to manage a project. Mr. Tryon, Supervisor Tryon, at the last COG meeting said that there was a time in which the planning department, the county planning department, Public Works, I think the word he used was dysfunctional. There was a time. And so the county didn't opt to yes, okay, to be the lead agency in projects. The COG adopted the projects, and I think Supervisor Callaway, you're aware of this. The COG adopted the projects with the COG as lead agency. The county never objected to that. Never said, until Mr. Garcia came. And now he's objecting because he doesn't play a big enough, it's my opinion anyway, he doesn't play a big enough role.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for running over.
Well, I have 2 pages of comments. I don't know that I could cover them all in 5 minutes.
Well,
but
you can give the comments to the clerk if you'd like, Bob, or you only get 5 minutes.
I get 5 minutes. Well, I can give you the 2 pages then, but let me highlight some of the things.
Thank you. Could you introduce yourself, please?
As a little background, I'm Bob Leitzel.
Thank you.
I was executive director of the Local Transportation Commission when it was an LTC from 1980 to 1987. I was director of public works also at the same time. I also served 3.5 years as one of the public members on the COG. I'm very strongly in favor of having 3 members of the public on the COG. One of the reasons for this is you have 2 city members and you have 2 county members. That one person will have to resolve any disagreement between the city and the county, because I had that when I was LTC director. You had 2 people voting this way, or 3 people in that case, 3 people one way and 3 people the other, because you only have one city. And so the city is concerned about that one city, the county is concerned about the county. So, and you had no way to settle that except somebody had to give in, because there's only 6 members on the LTC. With 1 member on the COG of representing the public, I wouldn't want to be that 1 member, because if there's a disagreement, that 1 member is the one that's going to make the decision. With 3 members, it's spread out, and you can get some differing opinions. So I strongly recommend the 3 members. I think there's an advantage to the public agency. I think Rita has addressed some of that, and other people have. I firmly believe that if for some reason you dissolve the COG and go back to an LTC, and I've already said I don't like that, then the staff should certainly go over to the LTC, because if it doesn't, what are you going to do? You have no one who has worked on projects that have knowledge of all those projects. So definitely the staff should go over, at least for a temporary basis. The public member, of which you proposed only 1, it seemed to me in the document that was before you for approval, required that public member be approved by a majority of the city council and majority of the county board of supervisors. It ought to be selected by the COG members. How are they going to get agreement?
I think it is. Mr. Garcia, isn't it, by the COG members?
Is that what he intended? That's not what it says.
Yeah.
It said a majority of the city.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, that should be straightened out along with a lot of other things.
He's right.
Okay, I missed that. Too bad.
It's okay.
I also think that the COG should be a separate agency, and probably that's been covered pretty well. So I won't go into any of the other things I had to mention here, because Marita has covered most of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Anyway, don't
Garcia.
approve this.
Yeah.
I'm John Ellis. I'm from Arnold, and I'm the current chairman of the board of the COG board. I want to pick up on something real quick, what Gary was talking about, the TE projects. The TE projects that are part of the controversy right now, Tom Tryon's the one that moved the motion to approve those TE projects. So we're only following what was done 4 years ago. And it was at a time when the county was in a bad situation, And it turned to the COG to pick up the pieces on that one particular piece and to carry them out, and that's what we did. And we've been following, as far as I'm aware, those guidelines at all times, those projects, the way that they were written up, and they were to be administered. There's ways to change those TE projects, and like it's been said here, there are 2 votes from the city and 2 votes from the county, and there's 3 public members. Well, you got 4 votes. If the city and the county agree, they can change anything. They can do the policy, they can change anything they want. They can do everything they're proposing here today without going through changing the JPA. It does not make sense to me. Which brings me to the public members. I want to just sort of summarize what's been said here. You don't want 1 public member. To me, that makes no sense. If that puts a lot of pressure on 1 public member, you want a consensus. When you have 2 elected officials from the city and 2 elected officials from the county, and they're at a stalemate and they can't agree, do you want 1 appointed public member making that decision, or do you want the consensus of 3 public members making that decision? It makes logical sense to have the 3 public members making that decision. And in addition to that, the public members on our rotation, they get appointed, 1 gets appointed every 3rd year, or every year, and it's in a 3-year rotation. So that means there is continuity. The other public members know what's going on. When I first came on the COG board, it took me at least a year to get up to speed what was going on. It's important to be able to have those public members that have the knowledge to continue with the board, to help the new public member, and to have some continuity to what's going on. So I happen to think the existing JPA works rather well. I think it needs to be tweaked a little bit. I think if there's some concerns, I think you have the power to change it on the COG board to address all these issues. The city and council, the city and the board of supervisors can come together and they can make those changes right at the COG board. So I don't know what the big thing is.
Joyce Tecco, myvalleysprings.com. I attend some of the COG meetings from time to time, and we should be very proud of John Ellis, Pat Maurer, and David Woods, who are the public members who are serving on that council. They bring a wonderful quality to that council. I don't want to see the public input diminished. The other thing I want to say is I thank Marita for her information that she discussed in the beginning of this meeting. She took my speech away from me. But I'm going to bring up some of it because it's really important. The meeting at the Angels Camp City Council was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. At that meeting, the City Council recommended that the JPA be further refined and discussed at a meeting between the 2 Angels Camp COG members and the 2 Board of Supervisor COG members. Now, on September 21st, 2 weeks later, we find the revised JPA already placed on the board agenda to adopt. When was there time for this group to meet and agree on a JPA? When and where did this meeting occur? Who attended the meeting? Were there minutes of the meeting? And what was the vote of those who attended? I think that's really important because this is complicated. This is complicated, and we shouldn't be making a decision like that this quickly. And I just thank you again. Thank you.
Hi, folks. How are you this afternoon? I'm Richard Clough, and I'm from Rancho Calaveras down there. And my thoughts on the matter, it's not about personalities. It's about power and accountability. And to eliminate public members, as far as I'm concerned, that would be ludicrous. I think, if anything, you should add another one. Make 4 so that it balances out. But at any rate, it's going to be your decision.
Thank you.
My name is George Fry. I'm the alternate on the COG, and during this year I have sat in on 3 COG meetings as a result of other COG members having other things going on that they couldn't attend the COG. I'm very satisfied with the way the COG runs. I can pick up the phone anytime and talk to the director, executive director, Tim McSorley. He answers my questions. He has a wealth of information. His staff is second to none. I support everything you have said here today, Marita. We need more transparency. We need less government. We need more public input. And if we're going to have more public input, we need to have 5 members from the public on there so that you have a total of 9, so that you don't have any ties on any issues. I've heard people on the Board of Supervisors in the past and on the City Council talk about transparency, but sometimes it's not there. I've been following, I worked in the planning department from 1977 until 1986. And I worked with Bob Leitzel when he was the Public Works Director and the LTC Director. And I worked with LAFCO, and we worked on the general plan. We did a lot of different kinds of things. And I followed from the time the LTC disbanded and the COG got started in 1997. And I don't always go to every meeting, but I've been going to those meetings for 14 years off and on. And there's nothing wrong with the current COG thing. You know, I've served as an elected official on 2 school boards, and on those school boards you have what are called policies. And the school board's trustees determine the policies based on the recommendations of the superintendent. And then after those policies are taken care of, then there are administrative regulations. And those are the guiding principles of how the day-to-day operation of an entity operates. And that's what we need to continue to do here. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good afternoon, excuse me. My name is Ron Randall, and I'm from District 1. I have a couple of suggestions and questions and a conclusion here. And I'd like to ask a couple of questions first. On page 2 of 16, which is section 1 under purpose, on 1.1, there's a statement there that says, to develop regional plans and policies and perform regional transportation planning duties. I'd like to know what those regional plans are that are referred to there. On 1.5 on the same page, it states to facilitate interagency coordination between county, city, Caltrans, and community groups. I wonder who those community groups there would be. On page 6 of 16, under section 9, it's actually section 8, but it is page 6 of 16. It says Calaveras Council of Governments may annually negotiate an agreement with the member agencies for service that may include but are not limited to treasurer, auditor, controller, legal services, information technology, and human resources. I would suggest that maybe you add the planning department and public works under that. Okay, on page 13 of 16, section 15, it says countywide plans, standards, and programs, but because that addresses community plans, I think that heading should say community and countywide plans. And those are all I have really concerning the document there. Because of some other people's statements, I would like to point out this is not personal, it's about accountability. I haven't seen nobody here that has a grudge or anything like that here. I have no ill feelings towards Calaveras Council of Governments or their employees. As I pointed out on the 20th of July, the COG answers to no one. I have not heard from them to this date concerning your instructions for them to get a hold of me. I would like to compliment the Public Works for their outstanding work that they did, and also for their recommendations that I agree with and approve of. Public Works recommendations are my recommendations, and these changes greatly improve the JPA, or the Joint Powers Agreement. This should have been done previously. Also, thanks to the City of Angels for their contributions. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randall.
I'm Tillman Sherman from San Andreas. I'd just like to say, it's been said by others in here, but CCOG is one of the pillars of continuity in this county. They do a lot of things for a lot of people. In contrast, the county is on its fourth administrator in recent history. They're on their fourth planning director in recent history. And they're on their third or fourth public works director. So you guys might look and think maybe you're on borrowed time here. So in the meantime, COG's done a really good job for us. Now someone wants to dismantle one of the few pillars of continuity in the county by revising the JPA agreement, by introducing concepts inconsistent with consistent with personal agendas rather than the good of the county. The proposed revisions have great potential to run off the valuable and gifted staff at COG, which is the only segment of the county that worked with the various communities of the county to update their community plans. CCOG was also instrumental in implementing the RIM project, which Marita mentioned. And Marita, thank you for all your hard work on this. I really respect that. This revision of the JP also reduces citizens' direct representation from 43% to 20%. Transportation planning is or should be about the citizens rather than the governing bodies or the elected officials. The CCOG plans how to use our taxes to maintain or improve our roads and to address the transportation needs of the county. The revised JPA blatantly opens the door to manipulation of transportation planning in Calaveras County by the reduction of public members on the board. And it changes the termination dissolution provisions, namely removing the existing CCOG director. We're back to that continuity thing. There's a lot of lack of continuity in this county. CCOG is the pillar of continuity in this county, and it has been for a long time. I urge the board to look seriously at the sections on CCOG membership and termination and dissolution in the minute order. Also, please note that the memorandum to the CAO does not mention the reduction in public participation on the CCOG board, nor does it address the change that the CCOG director would no longer automatically transition to be director of the new agency. These are very important issues that were not included in the recap presented to our extremely busy CAO. In my opinion, a very serious omission in that summary. I strongly believe that these proposed changes will make it very difficult to attract and keep the quality of staff that we need in this very important function of Calaveras County government. Calaveras County cannot continue to make bad decisions that adversely impact revenue and quality of life issues for the citizens of the county. If the board passes the revised agreement, it will be yet another example of a quick decision made by the county without a thorough analysis or review of potential consequences. It would essentially be just another power grab by the good old boys of Calaveras County that would disregard that which is best for the general well-being of Calaveras County. I strongly encourage you to vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Patty Crane, Valley Springs, Rancho Calaveras. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the wisdom is in the room. So this is a wonderful discussion we're having today. Mr. Sherman's focused, on-point, and well-constructed statements bring to mind a few concerns of my own. As a community, the voting public, we have a right and a responsibility to cast our votes for those we pay and fully expect to do our business while working with honor and integrity on our behalf. When some of them betray our trust, putting their personal agendas ahead of that of the public they're sworn to honestly represent, or by working to dismantle anything and everything that stands in the way of getting what they want, we, the voting public, can and must speak out. Sadly, we've seen this happening right here in Calaveras, the place we all call home. They look for 2 or 3 active and well-meaning citizens who have a certain amount of pull in their own circles. They infiltrate our communities just enough to ensure their seeds of deceit are sown. Funny how we all seem to tiptoe around certain issues because we hesitate to name names. There are no real secrets here. We have all watched these proceedings in this very room, as well as in meeting places all over the county. When unable to attend in person, we stay informed via recordings by our local public access TV, and we thank you for that. So, someone wants to destroy one of the few effective pillars of our community. What's before us today opens the door and sets the stage for more future uncertainty and less public involvement. My concern is that this is perhaps yet another effort by Supervisors Tryon and Tofinelli to shore up and strengthen the good old boy system and limit the voice of the public. Everyone knows the good old boy system is alive and well here in Calaveras. It's no secret. What I want to know is who's going to stand up to this public disservice. For those who would manipulate the system and take advantage of citizens who look to them for honest leadership, standing up for what's right and voting to keep our Council of Governments intact will send a clear message that Calaveras is not up for grabs. You will be rewarded by a vote of confidence from constituents not only from your own district, but countywide. We all know that each supervisor votes on all the issues, so their decisions impact all 5 districts. The days are fast disappearing when the citizens of Calaveras County didn't bother to get involved. They care about our beautiful and unique Calaveras, and they hunger for accurate and truthful information so they can cast their one vote with confidence. Please don't throw us to the wind so you can secure needed votes for an upcoming issue. And when you defer to the supervisor whose district is being affected, knowing full well they are not representing the whole of their constituents, you do a disservice to that district as well as to your own. It is a slippery slope, and everyone loses. Calaveras needs a few heroes. Please cast your vote to maintain our skilled and efficiently staffed Council of Governments. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mike Weichert. Wow, what an education I'm getting today. I came here not really sure about what was going on as far as the JPA. I haven't personally read it. Just from listening to what I've heard here today, it sounds to me like some more time needs to be spent from both sides as far as drawing up a document that's going to make these kind of major changes to an organization. My own personal involvement with things going on in my own community is that I've heard a lot of things that were done really good by COG as far as transportation and things as far as a bypass up in Angels Camp. And I know from my own personal experience that they pretty much totally destroyed the continuity in Valley Springs by getting involved in planning that they didn't belong being part of. So I'm a little confused about whether they're a transportation organization or they're a planning organization. And when I listen to them talk about the revisions in the plan here, or the JPA agreement, it still leaves the door open for them to be involved in community planning. So as a resident of a community that's been torn apart by their mismanagement of a grant that they were awarded, I would ask that if you're going to leave them that authority to be involved in things like that, that you at least make them learn how to properly implement a planning document before they try to give somebody something that they don't want. The communities of Rancho Calaveras and Valley Springs have overwhelmingly told them they don't want what they have. And at their last meeting, we got a half-hour to 45-minute dissertation about public involvement, public input. You're the most important here. Everything you say makes a difference. At that same meeting, we found out that the people that were supposed to be there representing us, which were the stakeholders group, were not met with before the final plan of that community plan was given to the public to look at. They were in their agreement that they entered into with your permission. It clearly states in there that that document was supposed to go before them before it went out to the public. They bypassed that step, and at that public meeting, when they were asked about the public input at the meeting that night, whether it was going to have any effect on the document before it came to you, they were told that your comments will be put into the back of the document before it's submitted. Now, if that's what they consider public involvement, then I would say only having one person on their board would scare the hell out of me as a person that pays taxes. Because their idea of public involvement is they say that they did something and they check a box and they consider that public involvement. If you're going to have an agency that's going to be, controlling funds from all of us out here that pay taxes, then I think they should be held accountable for what they do. If they're a separate agency, we don't vote them in. They're appointed by you or they're voted in by you. We have no control over what they do. We can't vote them out of office because of their mismanagement of what they do. And I'm not saying everything they do is wrong. I want to make that perfectly clear. They probably have done some really good things for Calaveras County, but they've also made a horrible mess out of some of the other things they've done.
Mike, do I understand that you do not want public members on the COG board?
I want all three of them to stay on there. That would be my request. And I also it would be my preference that COG not be allowed to be involved with public community planning in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Romano. I'm from San Andreas, District 1. As I listen to today's speakers and reflect on similar skirmishes that have taken place in these chambers over the last several years, I'm struck by the reality that what happens all too often in Calaveras County is just bad government. We have some elected officials who feel they are entitled to push their personal agenda rather than follow the law and make decisions that are in the best interest of our citizens. They do this by limiting or just plain ignoring wide community input, by manipulating memberships on boards and commissions to tilt power in their favor, or simply ignore laws, rules, and protocols altogether. It's just time to show them that we aren't going to take their kind of politics any longer, and we are going to demand that they follow the law, tell the truth, and listen to the citizens of Calaveras County. Today would be a really good day to start. Let's have a 5-0 vote to reject this proposal, keep the one that's in effect, that reflects the wider community input and the other things that people have said. So I respectfully ask that the Board of Supervisors, as I said, let's start today. Let's have a 5-0 vote to reject this proposed agenda agreement.
Good afternoon. Tim McSorley, Executive Director of the Council of Governments.
I just want to make a statement. Since Mr. McSorley is the director of the agency that's under discussion today, I am going to allow him more than 5 minutes. So I don't know if you need it, but you can have it, and if you go too long, I will.
Cut me off.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm honestly overwhelmed. I can't thank everybody that's here enough, and even the folks that perhaps aren't very complimentary. I'm ready to sit down and work with them. I've been in the county for almost 8 years, and I think those of you that have worked with me and know me, my mantra is cooperation and collaboration.
I did have some prepared remarks, and I'm going to throw them out the window with one exception. I would request respectfully that the Board of Supervisors direct your staff, and I would accept that as direction as well, to form a committee where we can sit down and take all of this input and come back to the board and the city council with a document that has been prepared in a little bit more of a collaborative fashion. As you recall, on July 20th, I was specifically excluded from the process up until September 10th when I was sent a memo asking for my input. I've provided that to Public Works Department. I don't think I need to go through all of those details, because if the board is so inclined, I would like very much to take the opportunity to sit down and work on these items and come back with a document that I think everybody can work with. We've known since we completed the strategic plan now over a year and a half ago that there were provisions in the JPA that needed to be revised. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And I would like to take that, and we also identified that that's kind of the first step, is what we might call cleanup. I agree with Mr. Garcia that there needs to be a clear definition of roles and responsibilities, but I also agree with some of the comments that were made. We were asked to fill voids. We provided information. We asked that these items be brought before the board, and in the past they weren't. Okay, let's move forward. Let's try and look at a way of move forward. But if we're going to move forward, I think we need to know what mistakes we may or may not have made in the past. And I'm convinced, not only with my term with Public Works for 3.5 years, but my term with the COG, could we have done things differently? Sure. Did we make mistakes? I honestly don't believe that we made mistakes in terms of the processes and the projects and everything that we've gotten to this point. So I'm ready to move forward, and I would respectfully request that we form a committee and sit down and work on some of these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McSorley. Are there any other comments? Okay, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for some direction. Is there a supervisor who'd like to start? Mr. Tryon?
Okay, I'll start. I think I just disagree just about with every comment that was made here this afternoon, with the exception of Ron Randall's. I think you folks have a fundamentally flawed
Could you
understanding.
speak into the microphone, please?
You have a fundamentally flawed understanding of what the COG is. COG is a creation of the city and county. COG is a creation of the Joint Powers Agreement between the City of Angels Camp and the County of Calaveras. It's not an agency that gets to operate independent of the defining document, the Constitution, if you will, of the COG. That Constitution is the Joint Powers Agreement. COG is not a party to the Joint Powers Agreement. There are two parties to the Joint Powers Agreement, and it's the City of Angels Camp and the County of Calaveras. So all of you that want sort of COG to be independent of the county and independent of the city and an independent agency that'll just do what you say, you're wrong. That's not how COG is structured. That's not how COG is intended to work. If you look at what we have before us today, quite frankly, is a very unique document. It is a document that represents the meetings between the city and the county. And the city and the county and those discussions have come together with a document that is recommended by, I believe, the city, and I hope, the county. It was On the governing side, there's two parts to this document that changes. One's governance. On the governing side, we tried to make it such that the COG would have to be very responsive, which they are currently not, would have to be very responsive to the city in the county. We did that, and we also, on the governance side, tried to make sure that there would be cooperation between the city and the county, and the city and the county would speak with one voice. And that's what we tried to do on the governance side. And we did that basically by making sure that no party will be held hostage to this joint powers agreement, that either party can terminate it within 30 days. So obviously both parties have to work together, or this document will not work and nobody will be held hostage. We made the term of the public member 1 year so that the public member understands that the county and the city have to work together, and if the county or the city, if you can't get a majority vote, and there's 2 members each, which means you have to get at least 1 vote from the opposing side, that then you will reappoint, or you will appoint a different public member. And that is so that it'll be responsive. It'll be responsive to the city and the county, and that's what the intent on the governance side will be. I don't know, 2-3 months ago, we had a vote on the COG board where it was a 4-3 vote. And the 2 city council members and myself voted one way for 3 votes, and the 3 public members and Marita voted the other way. I mean, the city had no voice at all. Both city council members' votes were basically invalidated. That's not right, and you're not going to keep the organization going if you don't have at least a majority of the elected representatives. And you know, all this talk about the public members, of which I strongly disagree. I've never been a big fan of public members. I'm a fan of representative democracy. I think you need to have elected people on these boards, and that's because those are the people you can unelect or you can recall. You can't do a dang thing about an appointed member. You know, it was, like I said, a 4-3 vote, 2-3 months ago. I mean, those public members are still there. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if you want accountability, then you better put the emphasis on elected members, because that's where the accountability lies. The accountability lies in the electoral process, not a public member appointment process. So, you know, I'll just, you know, I mean, Marita's opening comments are what Marita does best. When she has a document she doesn't like, she kills it with 1,000 wounds. You know, but the substance in this document, in my opinion, the substance is correct, and it's a good document. The second part, after governance, is the delivering of projects. COG basically can have 2 functions. Number 1 is doing the regional transportation plan and raising money and doing the unmet transit needs. The other half on the operational side is the delivering of projects. Currently, COG delivers no projects in the city of Angels that I'm aware of, but COG demands that they deliver projects within the county of Calaveras. This document doesn't prohibit, this joint powers agreement does not prohibit COG from delivering projects. It says it's at the discretion of the county board of supervisors. If the county wishes to deliver projects in the county, then the county will do so. An example would be the community plan in Valley Springs. That should have come to the county planning department for the county planning department to implement. If the county board of supervisors says, no, we wish to have COG do that, then we have the ability to do so. And that's structurally how it should work. And that's the way it should work for transportation projects. One of the things I must say I'm just absolutely tired of hearing about is the great job COG did in delivering the Angels Camp bypass project. COG had almost nothing to do with it. When we signed the joint powers agreement with Alpine and Amador County, we were an LTC. I believe I was chairman at the time. I think I'm the one that signed on behalf of the Calaveras County LTC for the I want to say joint powers agreement, I don't know what you call it, the Tri-County Agreement.
The memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, the memorandum of understanding for the Tri-County Agreement. That's what put the Angels Bypass project in place. Who was the delivering agency and in control of the Angels Bypass? It wasn't COG, it was the City Council. The last meeting we had for the City Council was at the theater in Bret Harte High School in Angels, and at a very late date, after the alignment had been selected and everything was ready to go. Everything was ready to go. They had a city council meeting, and they decided to continue with the Angels Camp bypass. The city council almost killed it at that time. It was a 3-2 vote. I was out there lobbying the undecided vote, and I'll leave names out of it. But it wasn't the COG board that decided whether the Angels Camp bypass was going to go forward or not. It was the Angels Camp City Council. But this Board of Supervisors doesn't even want there's certain members of this Board of Supervisors say, no, we don't want that. We want the COG. We don't want the county to have an option of delivering projects within the county. I listened to Gary Caldwell, which I'm getting tired of, I must admit, because he shows up at also all the COG meetings, and I think his purpose in life at this point is to bash the county, and most specifically the Public Works Department, and he does a very effective job of it. I did not vote for the COG to have those reserves, and then Gary laid out an exact reason why. Because the county has reserves, and the city has reserves, and if projects come forward, the city and the county can use their reserves for the project. We don't need duplicative reserves out there to where we have so much money tied up in reserves. The county keeps their reserves, and the city keeps their reserves. Getting back to the governance, I wrote all this stuff down. I don't have it very well organized as a consequence of this meeting, but getting back to the governance, one of the key things in here, which Marita said she's opposed to, is the executive management, I think it's an executive management committee that we put in we didn't have before. And we made it, and we involved specifically so that the county and the city would speak with one voice, and we would work cooperatively, that specifically the city administrator and the CAO of the county, not staff level, those are staff positions, but the highest staff positions at both entities would be involved not so much in decision making, but in meeting and making recommendations to the COG board, which consists of two city council members, 2 board members, and 1 public member picked by those 2 elected, by those 4 elected members. And I think that's absolutely critical if you're going to keep the city and the county together. Bob Leisel likes to jump up and talk about all the differences we had back when we were in LTC. I don't think those differences exist today. I think the city council is entirely different. The board of supervisors is entirely different. And I think one of the absolute necessities to keep the city and the county together is to have this executive management committee. I think that's an absolutely excellent idea, and I'm strongly in favor of it. I talked about on the governance side, one of the reasons for a short dissolution is to keep the parties working together. And quite frankly, if you dissolve the COG, the only thing that changes is a name, nothing in function, a name, and it goes to 3 elected board members and 3 elected city council members. That's all that happens if you dissolve the COG. Nothing more than that happens. So it's pointless to say, oh my God, this horrible thing could happen. My God, they could dissolve the COG. Well, then the city and the county are still going to have to work together. And you won't have an odd number group. You'll have an even number group. But I don't see, at least in this environment, the city and the county not working together. The other thing you have when it comes to the deliverance of projects is you just have a huge duplicity. We have public works staff. We have planning staff. Why are we duplicating all that with taxpayer money in the COG? That makes no sense at all. It's just absolutely wasteful. And lastly, I guess I would just say that to me, and these are sort of trite words, is that, we're all for accountability and transparency. Well, I'm for accountability and transparency. Quite frankly, I think the COG is not. I mean, you want transparency and accountability? This is it. Before the Board of Supervisors, we have 3 members of the printed press. We have TV cameras. You have 5 elected representatives in front of you. You're talking to us. Do you think we ever have a meeting like this as a COG board? We never have a meeting like this as a COG board. There's no accountability. And that's one of the reasons, quite frankly, I think Marita and others wish to not have the county and the city empowered by the governing document, which is the Joint Powers Agreement, because they can run outside agendas there, because there isn't this accountability. It's pretty hard to run an outside agenda in the boardroom on agendized items. You know, board members can do it by going around and doing things outside of this boardroom and outside of agendized items, but it's very easy to do it at the COG. Because there's nobody there that's checking. I mean, we have the CIO sitting here, we have county council sitting here, we got the public works director here, we got the planning director. Who's a COG? I mean, it's one person. Everybody's under him. There's no, you know, the COG board is, in my opinion, the most uninformed board I've ever sat on. You know, this may not be the perfect document, but it's the perfect document to start with today, including the operations manual. I mean, you have to have an operations manual. Adopt this now, and within the document, the Joint Powers Agreement, it says how it is to be changed. But I think it should be adopted as it is, because we need a starting point. And it's nice to have the starting point be something that requires a majority vote of the Board of Supervisors and a majority vote of the City Council. And I don't prejudge how the city's going to vote tonight. I don't prejudge how the board's going to vote. But to say that the dysfunctional and agency known as COG should continue, and we should just discard all this and go back to the old Joint Powers Agreement, which, quite frankly, did not have this public input. I don't remember there was hardly anybody in the public meeting when we did the original Joint Powers Agreement. You know, that's not